All right, so the advanced portion that some of you might want to try is making a random string. Now, making the computer come up with a random string that makes sense without giving it any information would be really, really difficult. You'd need some sort of AI to do it correctly, quote unquote correctly. But if you are trying to do this advanced portion, you can kind of cheat by giving the computer some things to choose from. So here I made a bank of species names it could pick from. So I picked lionfish, swordfish, angelfish, shellfish, just some examples. And then I can have the computer pick from this string like this. Actually, let me do this. New string. So it has this is defined first, so now we can use it later. And then I can put, instead of a string like literal, which is what this is, like when I type in a string into the program, it's called a string literal. Instead of that, I can do species bank. And then inside the thing that accesses the array, because this is an array of strings, I can put random from to probably something like, I don't know. Well, actually, it has to be, we are one indexed in this test language, in this learning language. So, sorry, that was a message from a student. I'll make sure to get to that in a second. So if I have 4 of these and I'm one indexed, I want to go from 1 to 4. I don't want to do any of those. Now, to access arrays, we do not use floats. So this is going to be assumed to be an integer. I'm just going to wave my magic wand and say, hey, this language is so fancy that it just does this automatically. It automatically thinks of this as an integer because it's inside a variable access. Although it would be easier for the programmer of the language to just say you have to make it new integer. Ooh. New integer. I don't know, temp. I like to put temp when it doesn't really have any use besides just being a temporary thing. So, I mean, you could, but we're just gonna say, hey, let's just make it simple for you guys, at least for now, and just put, you can put random from 1 to 4. All right. So if you want to get fancy, try making a string that can go in there too. This, remember, this is optional. This is optional. Advanced is optional, guys. I don't want people saying, Mr. Fernandez, I don't know how to do this, or if I don't do this, will I get an F? No, you know, it's optional, guys. If you want to learn a little bit extra in this week, try to do this too. Okay? All right. And guys, when you're doing things, try to follow the formatting exactly. I know that it's hard to have attention to detail, but in programming, attention to detail is extremely important. Notice when I have an array, I put these array brackets here. I have the equal sign, I have braces, I have strings separated by commas. All of this stuff is actually really important. It helps the computer understand what you're saying, and if you don't put it in that way, the computer is not going to know what you're talking about, and it's either going to throw it's just going to say, hey, I don't know what you're talking about, do it again, or it's going to crash. And so you just want to be really careful with what you give the computer. All right, so that's all. Send me a message on Remind if you need some help.